Since we're back in regular mode now, I had received an email during the retreat from somebody who in Ireland who is doing a codependence anonymous group. And he's finding it very helpful, following the 12 steps. And he wanted some guidance about how to do this within a Buddhist framework. So he was asking some very good questions, so it might take some time to go through them. Okay, so, he was saying it shouldn't be so much of a problem, because they say higher power, although the group he does apparently says God, but, to substitute Buddha or the 3 jewels or something like that. So it seems like that would be good, but then when he's thinking about it in more depth, then he's coming up with some questions. So he said, what I'm struggling with is the balance that I discern within Buddhism for self-reliance and how this exists alongside the realization that we need spiritual teachers at the same time. The idea that we create our own experience and are responsible for our own karma is a central tenet of Buddhism, obviously. However, there is also the realization that we need qualified spiritual teachers to guide us on the correct course for spiritual awakening. So that's the first part of the question. There's several parts here. So Buddhism talks about self-reliance, but then it also says that you need a spiritual teacher. So does that mean that's contradictory? No. Okay? The reliance means that we have to do the work ourselves, that nobody else can do it for us, that drinking blessed water, getting bonked on the head with a vase, swallowing a pill, wearing cords, these kinds of things, the material things themselves cannot change our mind. If we use those things to change our mind and remind us of the Dharma, it's very valuable. But the real work that we have to do is ourself inside here. So that's what the self-reliance refers to. The self-reliance does not refer to making up the path ourselves. Yeah, because we've been making up the path to happiness ourselves since beginningless time. Yeah, and mostly our path to happiness has been sense pleasure, but we've been born as everything in previous lives, so we followed this religion, we followed that religion, we were probably even made up our own religion in some previous lives, or we took different bits of different things and we mushed them together, making what Lama Yeshe would call stew or soup, a little bit from this, a little bit from that. I like all these ideas, I don't like those, so I'll just take the ones I like and mix them together. So that's not the meaning of self-reliance, picking and choosing ourselves or inventing the path ourselves. It's actually much smarter and much wiser to learn from people who know. It's like our whole life we learn from people who know, don't we? Yeah, it's kind of amazing in spiritual things. Oh, I want to develop it myself. But everything we know we learn from other people. People taught us how to talk, they taught us how to type, they taught us how to sweep the floor, how to brush our teeth. Everything we learned from other people. So it's good. Imagine if nobody had taught us how to brush our teeth and we were going to have to invent a way ourselves to keep our teeth and gums healthy. It's like, it's just much better to learn from experts, isn't it? Yeah? So here, we definitely need teachers because in the spiritual realm, it's even more important, If you get a typing teacher that doesn't teach you so well, that's okay. You can get somebody else who does it better and you can improve your skills and so on. It's not a big crisis, But if you have a spiritual teacher that teaches you the wrong path and you follow that path, then all your spiritual attempts are really going to be foiled because you're not going to get the kinds of results that you want. Yeah, so that's why it's so important to check the qualities of the teacher and the qualities of the teaching. Yeah, and so when we look at the teachings that came from the Buddha, we saw that the Buddha himself was a realized being. Okay, now somebody might say, but Buddha just discovered the path that very lifetime, why can't I? Well, that's one view of looking at the Buddha. But from the Mahayana view, we say actually the Buddha was enlightened a long time ago, and he appeared in the aspect of an ordinary person, 2,500 years ago, so that he can demonstrate to us how we have to put effort into the practice and so on. Okay, so it wasn't that the Buddha just, sat under the Bodhi tree and, wham, it all came to him. He was previously enlightened. And so if you read the chronicles of the Buddhas, they all have teachers, in previous lifetimes. And they all make the bodhisattva vow in the presence of those teachers and receive a prediction and so on. But they really receive teachings. And then we have to think about the teachings ourselves and actualize the meaning ourselves. But it's much better to learn from an enlightened being such as the Buddha, okay, rather than inventing our own path. Okay? So, and then, some people might say, well, I can just go directly to the Buddha. I don't need a live teacher to guide me. I think when we are already involved in the path and have a deep understanding, that may be the case. When we've already been practicing for, a number of years and so on. But especially at the beginning, for the first, I don't know how many years, until your teachers pass away, you need a teacher. Maybe after all your teachers pass away, then you rely on the books and so on. But at the beginning, we really need a teacher because the texts are not always so easy to understand. We can easily misunderstand them. Yeah, and some of you, we've been going through some of these philosophy texts. Could you read those on your own and understand what was going on? No. Okay, so having a teacher who helps you and, gives you examples and gives other terms and so on and so forth, that's really helpful. Also having a teacher that can help us understand how to practice in our own culture at our own historical time period. Having a teacher who we can discuss with, if we're keeping precepts, well, what's the limit of keeping this precept? And what falls within that limit? And having a teacher who points out to us when we're doing things that are beyond, how we should be behaving, or a beneficial way to behave. So all of that is really helpful. Right now in a practical sense of having a real live human being as a teacher. And actually in Vinaya it says that your preceptor has to be somebody who's alive now. You can't say the Buddha was my preceptor and ordain yourself. Okay? So, so we learn from teachers who can trace their lineage back to the Buddha and who have practiced well and who have a good relationship with their teachers in the lineage and so on, and teachers who we've checked out their qualifications and who we trust. So we learn from those teachers, and then the self-reliant part is that we put it into practice. We think about it in terms of, is what we're learning, does it logically hang together? And if it doesn't, we ask questions. We practice it, and if we're getting results from the practice that don't correspond with what the teachings are saying we should feel, then we go back and we say, I must not have understood something correctly. So, how do I need to readjust my meditation or readjust my understanding so I get the results that this meditation's supposed to bring? Yeah, so that's the self-reliant part, and we work together with the with the Buddha and together with the teacher to bring that about. Okay? So that's part one. Well, he has several questions. We'll continue.